This is Janata Television. You are watching The View. In The View, we seek views of different personalities in different issues. In these days, Nepal is going for the election, and everywhere there is a talk of election. But there are different issues as well. After election, Nepal is supposed to be going to the development phases, and after long wait, Nepal's government will be stable and the development process will be speeded as all have expected. In the development world, UNDP is the one who is helping in development process of Nepal since long. We are here, we have invited today to talk about the development situation and the current situation of Nepal, how the development should be going in near future. We have invited over here the country director of UNDP, Mr. Renaud Meyer. Renaud, you are welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Arun.
Like I said in the starting, UNDP has been helping in development in the worldwide, and in Nepal is one of them. How has been UNDP doing in Nepal?
Well, we've been in the country for more than 50 years now, so I think we have been able to accompany Nepal on its development course. And when you look back at the history of our engagement with the country, we are very happy with the progress that the country has made. There's been 15 years under the Millennium Development Goals, the famous MDGs, during which we've seen a very strong and very good positive growth of the country in terms of, especially of its social indicators, education, health. But of course, Nepal is in the condition that we all know today, still facing some challenges, some difficult situation. It's a country highly vulnerable to natural disasters, to climate change. The governance systems, can of course continue to strengthen. But we really see Nepal engaging now with this new constitution with amazing opportunities. And I have been now in country for more than 2.5 years, and I feel very privileged to be here at this time of the history of the country. You've mentioned the elections, of course. This is often the tip of the iceberg of a democratization process. But in and before and after the election, it is very important that this discussion between the citizens of the country and its leadership, they bring about a consensus for development. And I think we are on the right way. Many challenges remain, many solutions are yet to be found, but we are optimistic in UNDP.
Cool. So how UNDP has accessed current position of Nepal, like after a long period, we have just made a constitution and we are going to the election with the new constitution, and we are saying that the new constitution will be fully functional after this election would happen, and we'll be going to the development courses then with stable government. How the UNDP has accessed this situation, how you are looking at, is quite positive, or?
Yeah, I think there is consensus that the constitution itself has a lot of very important elements to it. Many of the fundamental rights are now enshrined in the constitution, and for a country as diverse as Nepal, that has a complicated history with some conflict, but also many positive assets, whether it's natural or its population. And for example, the 2015 earthquake have shown how resilient the population is, and how very quickly people are able to find ways of going about, and fixing themselves. Of course, it helps if there is support from government, and there is. So we are very optimistic, and we look forward to the upcoming provincial and federal elections. I think the local elections that took place earlier this year were very successful for Nepal. It does provide, you are correct, stability at the local level, since now for almost 20 years we didn't have elections. We now have mayors in 753 municipalities who are in charge of development, of making sure that the aspirations of the people of Nepal are going to be able to be fulfilled. It's a big responsibility, and I know, for having met many of them, that they are worried about how they will be able to deliver their new responsibilities. They need resources, but they also need knowledge, capacity. So there's a lot of work to be done. But I think the fundamentals are there, and there is now increased trust, in the system, and this is very important for a country like Nepal. So I'm confident that the elections at the end of November, early December, will provide, I hope, the same stability at the provincial and, very importantly, at the federal level.
Okay, just you mentioned about the earthquake situation and how Nepal come back after earthquake, but it's always Nepal government has been criticized about the reconstruction. The reconstruction process has not been going properly, or it was quite not so speedy. It quite slow process of the reconstruction. How you as a foreign agency over here and looking over here the situation of the country, and you also do have looked around other part of the world also, how the reconstruction were done over there. How do you assess the situation of Nepal? Is it like very slow, like it has been regularly criticized, or it's going on this normal speed, or is still something?
I think it depends on how you look at it, right? If you're a farmer, a victim of the earthquake, your house has been completely destroyed, your livelihood has been affected by the earthquake, of course you are frustrated, and you want immediate support to be able to recover very quickly for you and your family. But when you look at it from a development practitioner, of course you sympathize with the situation. But it is a complex situation to be able to respond to such a devastating earthquake. And overall, when you compare the Nepal recovery to the recovery of other countries, whether it's Indonesia with the tsunami, or another country like Pakistan, who has also suffered a lot from earthquakes in the past decades, I think Nepal is doing well. And today, the work that the National Reconstruction Authority is able to implement, with the support of other and many line ministries, technical ministries, I think we see every day, every time I go back to the districts that were affected, I see progress. I see people working very hard. There is shortage of masons, here and there. But I think overall, the tools that the government has put in place with the support of the international community is now really delivering, results. And we see a lot of houses being rebuilt. What is very important, and it is a success in that sense, is that those houses are going to be stronger, so that the next earthquake, when it will happen in the country, will not have the same devastating effects. This resilience that we are applying to buildings, to infrastructure, I think now we have to also apply it more generally to society, to institutions, to government services. And this is the chance that we have with this election. Because if we have stability both at the local level and at the federal level, we have stronger chances to have good institutions that really can help develop a vision for the country, build on the capacities to deliver better public services to the people with better and stronger accountability. These are key ingredients that will make Nepal a strong country, well positioned to go on its development course and reach those objectives that it has set for itself of graduating from a least developing country by 2022, achieving the Sustainable Development Goals by 2030, graduating to a middle-income country by 2030 also. These are strong aspirations, ambitious aspirations, but not impossible.
Okay, like about the reconstruction, you say it's better comparatively to the other countries, but like the enthusiasm, it was in the initial period, and like international support that was assured and that was poured in. Maybe it was not like it should have been. Seeing from the context of Nepal itself.
Well, I think one of the biggest challenge that we have in Nepal is how the politics influence everything, right? And unfortunately, it has not the earthquake response and the mechanisms that were put, initially in the first few months were hindered, by this phenomena. And this is well acknowledged and well accepted, even by government officials themselves, who are now, and I think it's good. I mean, it's a positive signal that there is an acknowledgement of this difficulty. And yes, it took a long time for the National Reconstruction Authority to be established. But in the meantime, we managed to get a constitution for the country, right? So if you look at it, and maybe we will look at it in 10 years' time, and we look back to those moments, and ultimately people will say, well, yes, it did go slow at the beginning. It picked up speed after, But, in exchange, we received a constitution that was so long awaited by, many people in the country.
Yeah.
And this constitution, as we see today with the elections, successful local elections, hopefully the same for provincial and federal, we see that this constitution plays a very important role in terms of lifting the whole country on its development pathway.
Yeah, like the problem of stability was same there in the Reconstruction Authority also.
Absolutely.
Even the CEO was not stable. We have already 3 CEOs so far. That was maybe the problem. And like you said, mention about the MZDs. It was quite achieved in Nepal during the MZD period. Now UNDP have new concept like SDGs, Sustainable Development Goal. And what exactly it is and what the plan of UNDP to achieve the SDG goal in Nepal?
Well, let me just clarify, it's not UNDP who came up with the SDGs, right? It's really the international community. So it's all the member states, including Nepal, that have adopted what we call Agenda 2030 in 2015, which includes a lot of principles, but those 17 goals that each member state of the United Nations is committed now to achieve by 2030. So the role of UNDP is not to achieve the goals, it's for Nepal and its people to achieve the goal. Our role is to provide support, right? And really create a mobilization, first and foremost. It is very important that we make efforts at making sure that people are aware of what those goals are. Because fundamentally those goals are strong aspirations that the people themselves have expressed. It's therefore an agenda that creates very naturally a consensus among the people. And it is proven that in the dynamics of development, if people share a common agenda, a common vision, then it is easier to achieve this vision. Right? So 17 goals that include elements of education, of better health, of access to clean water, provision of renewable energies, decent labor, decent employment, peace in the country, reduction of inequalities, which is very important in Nepal, as we know. So all these are very noble objectives. And our job in UNDP and with all our partners, whether it's from civil society or from governments, is to mobilize people behind those goals. And then provide technical assistance so that we can implement projects with the government that will help achieve the targets that are behind each of the goals. And our third role is to help the government monitor and report to the global community and to its people the progress that the country is making on those goals. So indeed, it's again an ambitious agenda, but one that if all the stakeholders of the Nepali society are mobilized for, are achievable, and will really, I think, transform profoundly the country.
Just among 17 SDG goals, any specific goals that are mainly many specific issues that are targeted to Nepal, that this would be main priority?
Well, this is for Nepal to decide, of course, right? Indeed,
I mean, the 17 goals,
I think
UNDP suggests, which should be the main priority?
All the goals are important, right? And all the goals are interlinked, meaning it's very difficult to achieve one without impacting and making progress on the other. So in Nepal, it will depend on who you are in society. If you are a young, graduated from university Nepali, obviously finding a job, will be one of your first priority. If you are an elderly, having access to affordable health care is going to be your priority, maybe. So I don't think it's for UNDP to decide for Nepal what the priority should be. And this is what we call localization, making the goals a set of indicators that will be relevant for the country, or even under the level of the country at the subnational level. Right? Maybe a province, in Province 2 you will have different priorities than in Province 7, and within municipalities, and within groups of the population. So I think this is the beauty of the goals. You can adapt them, you can make them more relevant to the people, because again, if they're more relevant, people will be more mobilized to it, and you will increase the chances of success. But in a country like Nepal, the goal 10 on reducing inequalities, for example, we think from a UN perspective is fundamental. Right? Yeah. The place of women in society. So the gender goal, giving equal opportunities to men and women in society, is very, very important. Having strong institutions. We were talking about political instability earlier. Goal 16 on better governance, stronger institution, peace and access to justice. We know that these have been partly the root causes of the conflict in the past. So addressing those root causes and making sure that Nepal has a strong governance system that supports its people. So there are within the 17 goals some that maybe from a UN perspective are more important. But I think it would be wrong to say, do those and don't do these, because there's no trade-off. I think the 17 goals are fundamentally important to everyone and are objectives for the country to achieve them all.
I guess, like you say, the inequality is one of the major concerns in context of Nepal. So how do you think it is possible to remove or mitigate the inequality in context of Nepal? So you have been in Nepal since 2.5 years now, like you said. So you have been studying the society of Nepal. So what do you think main inequality regions in Nepal, and how they could be mitigated or they could be reduced?
This is a complex reality, of course, of Nepal. And it also makes the richness of the country. I mean, I for having traveled in many districts and many provinces, I see how much the people of Nepal make its strength, right? But as you rightly say, they are given unequal opportunities. And therefore, there are strong gaps within countries when you look at the social indicators, for example. I was just recently in Makwampur district among the Chepang community. Clearly, it is a community that has not been given opportunities the same way as others around the country. So I think, and everybody is aware of this. I mean, this is the good aspect, that there is a profound acknowledgement by all in society that this issue of inequality is a very serious issue. And therefore, the government is taking very proactive measures, right, of positive discrimination, targeting, assistance in some areas. And I think this is critical, right? In the same ways that we need to make sure that there are more women, in some social economic categories in the country. The justice sector being a very good example. There are not enough women lawyers, not enough women judges in the country. And we know by experience that a lot of the cases that come to courts, whether local courts or district courts or even higher level courts, a lot of those cases are based on gender inequality, on violence against women, for example. And here, needless to say, that being able as a victim to talk to a woman lawyer, a woman judge, is going to create a more conducive environment for those cases to be rightly addressed, right? So I think this issue of inequality is really important, for Nepal, and a lot of actions are being taken. It takes time, to address and fix those inequalities. But the complexity of it, the need for time, should not be excuses not to do. So we really encourage, all stakeholders to take this into consideration and really apply. This is why the SDGs, beyond the 17 goals, there's a tagline, and it's "Leave no one behind." And this is so relevant for Nepal. You cannot, graduate Nepal outside of its LDC status if you don't bring the whole population, out of it. What is the point of creating further inequalities, of having an elite, in Kathmandu Valley who enjoys better life when the rest of the country is getting worse and worse? So I think this is something that no one, desires in Nepal. And in that sense, we are all, with the same agenda. We want to leave no one behind. And I think, therefore, the SDG is a very good reference framework for development work in the country.
Do you think this new constitution Nepal has these provisions to address these issues?
Yes, and this is why I was referring to a very good content of the constitution. The rights, of every citizen is enshrined in the constitution. The constitution also creates, special commissions that whose job is and whose function is to look after the rights and the needs of special communities. And I think this is needed. Now, one has to make now the effort of moving from words in a document to a reality on the ground. Those commissions have to be established, they have to be given budgets, staffing, so that they can themselves become advocates and provide the necessary activities and projects that will positively impact the communities that they have to defend and protect.
Yes, about this UNDP assessment or your assessment, what is the current situation of the Nepalese society here? What should be done to uplift the Nepalese society according to your assessment?
Well, I think, there is, and I can feel it, there is, after the adoption of the Constitution and, the political instability that immediately followed the adoption of the Constitution, which happens in many countries. It's not the only, it's not the case for only Nepal. Today, I think we are in a situation where there is aspiration, right? There is hope, there is renewed hope, because we have seen that with the local election, so many people came to vote, right? So many people made the effort of casting their vote. And this sends a very positive signal, to the government, to the development practitioners, because it shows that people they want change, and they are confident that their vote can lead to that change. So this is what really inspires me in my own work personally, when I see people who, despite social, economic, and sometimes even political, disempowerment, still keep that faith that those who are in a leadership position, who are being selected through voting to take responsibilities in society, will bring that change. Right? And I'm optimistic for Nepal, because I see that there is this very rich and diverse society that is all looking towards the same direction. And this is very important, for a country that has so much yet to accomplish in terms of development. And UNDP, together with the other UN agencies and the other development partners of Nepal, this is what we are here for. We're here to accompany this movement, this dynamic, positive dynamic of development, and I trust we will be successful with all the Nepalese actors.
Like you said earlier, that there could be always possibilities, like people in Kathmandu getting richer and richer, and people in other parts of the country getting deprived on. But this is like a global phenomena. It's everywhere. This phenomena is few peoples are getting richer and richer by day, and the marginalized people are getting more marginalized these days. So in this context, like Nepal is just getting into the phase, just in the development phase, and it's not like other countries who had long history of the social mobilization, all these things. How should Nepal do it to mitigate this this long gap between? What should Nepal do?
In a sense, Nepal has here an opportunity to learn from the mistake of the others, right, and not reproduce, the same mistakes. I always take the example of the telephone, right? In my country, we started having the telephone. We all had landlines, and then came the cell phone, right? In Nepal,
your country, France.
I'm France. I'm French. In Nepal, we don't have landlines. We went straight, to mobile phones, and mobile phones are more than just a communication device. We all know that so many applications are being created, and some of them are being created by young Nepali bright minds, because they understand the needs and the relevance of this application versus that application. And smart technologies today, are really allowing Nepal to leapfrog and jump, from a development situation to another without going through all the mistakes that other countries have made. So in a sense, one should look at it as an opportunity, right? Yes, you are in some areas behind other countries, but your capacity to move very quickly, on the ladder of development is there. And I'm always very encouraged by the innovation, the creativity of the youth of this country, who are so inspiring to us, because not only do they force us to work harder and quicker with them, but they also share amazing ideas on precisely how do you make scarcity of resources an obligation for you to go the extra mile and really find solutions that can take the country forward.
Like you said, you mentioned about your country. Your country is one of the pioneer country in the Europe to establish a social security and rights of people. So according to, from your experience, I don't know, these days they have lots of other difficulties and other questions are being raised over there as well. But from the long experience from your country as well, so how should be the social security system in Nepal? Do you have any suggestions?
Well, my suggestion is based on my own experience, right? So I'm not going to say it's the solution, but I think it's important that everybody in society is guaranteed, a minimum. Right, I mean that I think is fundamental, and in a global community which is as rich as we are today,
health and education.
Yes, like health, like education, like access to energy. Energy without electricity, we know how limited the options are. Right, so access to energy, access to clean drinking water. I mean these are fundamentals, and it is not acceptable that in today's world, even the most deprived communities, don't have access to this type of facility. And it's not a question of resources, right? I mean, I think there has to be political will to really bring about change, that you bring this bare minimum that includes also fundamental rights, of the people.
Like we had recent experience about the electricity. It was not there,
exactly.
And it was suddenly
right?
it is
when
there.
I arrived in Nepal, we had cuts in electricity and load shedding more than half the day.
Yes.
And suddenly, everybody has electricity 24. I mean, not everybody, but at least in the valley here, we have electricity 24.
Now it's said everybody
right?
everywhere in the country.
Everywhere. So that's wonderful. So, and there hasn't been an industrial revolution. Clearly, there was something else behind, that. And it shows that with political will, you find solutions, right? So now that's a very good example. Let's apply this, to a lot of others. But having said that, I think we should not also fall on the other trap. I mean, the value of work, right, has to be really, promoted, and in a lot of the countries in Europe where you have this tendency of being more and more difficult to find employment opportunities, and I think Nepal should not, be in that situation. The needs are very great in this country for all kinds of professions, and we need to make sure that the education system has a strong alignment with the job market, right? And that a lot of the youth of Nepal, if they want an international exposure, it should be a choice, right? It should not be the only solution for them by going to the airport and exporting their labor to other countries. I think this is a priority also of the country, and it's always frustrating for me when I go to a local community and I'm told we're missing masons, we're missing this, we're missing that, there's no plumber, it's difficult to find a good electrician. Right? Why? This is precisely the type of jobs that Nepalis are doing overseas. Yes. So somewhere the whole system needs to be rethought, and we need to find ways of offering good, decent working with good salary, possibilities and opportunities for those young Nepali, so that they can stay in the country and really contribute to the development and the growth of Nepal.
Like during the current, like you said, the decent environmental work and decent salary situation, at the moment, Nepalese are not hoping about that. They are always looking after the Gulf countries, and that, like you said, the plumbers are not over here. They are working as the plumbers over there. They are building houses over there. Like in Qatar, there were lots of situations that Nepalese work over there. But over here, they are not finding that kind of work, and still they have no hope of getting these things. Do you think it will be possible that Nepalese could be getting soon hopeful, seeing the situation over here?
I think so, and I think with the development, and I really think that with the elections, and the federalization of the country, by giving more responsibilities closer to the community and closer to the people, I think we'll see a change in this. And I think mayors who have now been elected, they need, to create this type of environment within their communities where people are able to have this decent living in their own country. And I'm sure some people just want to go out, but the large majority will prefer, to stay with their families.
They all
right?
prefer to.
There's a huge social cost to this very heavy migration, right? It breaks family downs. It breaks the aspiration of young people and breaks the image of the father and the mother within the family. So these are profound consequences, and usually negative consequences in the long run, of migration.
No, it's like that. UNDP and other agencies are promoting social mobilization, and they are sensitizing the communities, and it has grown a demand over the people, but the supply system is not proper at the moment. So in this situation, how could be the supply situation as demand is increasing? How do you think the supply will be at per the people's demand, so that people won't have to go abroad, or won't have people could be satisfied over here in the country?
So the solution is to create economic opportunities at home, right? And for this, market mechanisms have to be brought in. Right? And we know that, for example, Nepal, unfortunately, is one of the countries in the world that attracts the less FDI, right? Foreign direct investment. And so one has to ask the question, why? How come? Right? Is there a poor legal environment that is not providing any incentive? Is there issues of transparency, right? Of corruption, to use a word that scares people, but it might be a reality. It is a reality. We all know. Right? So this is a role for the government to take, and to create a conducive environment so that it attracts investment from abroad. Nepal has so many opportunities. We always hear about three big sectors: agriculture, tourism, and natural resources, and especially hydro. Right? This is a reality. All the studies have shown that these are the three sectors that require investments to create job opportunities. So now we all have to work together towards accomplishing this. There is really no rationale at why do we export fruit to a neighboring country and then we import juice made of those same fruit. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. Right? So
seeing this situation, current situation, don't you think the demand is created so high that it's beyond the capacity of supply?
No, I don't think so. I think that the systems need to be looked at, and solutions will be found. I mean, there's no reason why you can find them in country X and not in Nepal.
So you have been to Nepal, again I'm saying that it's from 2.5 years, and have you seen anything from Nepal to inspire the world? You can take any examples to the world that, look, Nepal is doing such a thing and you should go do like that.
I mean, I think there are a few of those actually, and this is also a very good sign, right, for Nepal. I mean, a well-known global success of Nepal is the community forestry management system. I think very few countries can prove that the forest coverage, which is an indicator that we use to measure the healthiness of its environment. In Nepal it is increasing, and it has been increasing steadily over the years, despite being a developing country, which we usually assimilate to a country that uses and cuts a lot of wood and therefore has deforestation issues. The fact that in Nepal the country has empowered its own people, the community, to manage the forest in which they live and from which they draw resources is a great management, governance, I think, success, and a model that a lot of other countries should be inspired by. Another one is how entrepreneurship in Nepal is being encouraged and always qualified with social entrepreneurship. Means in the head of the young, especially the young people, they easily understand that making money as an entrepreneur is good. It's good for them. But if by getting richer, they do not make sure that they redistribute part of what they earn to their community, then it's not going to be sustainable. So it's very rare to hear the word entrepreneurship in Nepal without being called social entrepreneurship. And this is also a very strong lesson, I think, for the rest of the world. It's not unique to Nepal, but I think in Nepal it's very strong. And that again shows how the people of Nepal, despite being very diverse, have a strong sense of community. Right? And they've understood that being a sole individual is of course a reality, but a sole individual without the support of the community and taking care of this community is much more fragile, much more vulnerable.
And do you think there's a transformation from autocracy to the democracy up till the people in during this short period of time
Yes, and there's
that
no
is-
doubt about
yeah.
this. I mean, you know, a lot of people in the circle of development always talk, oh, if we fail development, there would be a risk that we go back to conflict. I don't believe this 1 second. I think, you know, any country who's gone through a dramatic, you know, event like a civil war or civil conflict for 10 years that has seen, you know, too many people die, too many people disappear, too many people injured, no one wants to go back there. And I think what we have seen with this constitution, with, you know, the stress on human rights, the fact that despite again being very diverse across the country, looking just at the number of people who came, walked for hours from remote communities to place their ballot in the box, it means they trust. It means that they aspire for something more positive, more successful. And there is absolutely no doubt in my mind that the rooting of democracy in Nepal is very successful. And therefore I'm optimistic, you know, about the future of the country, because if you empower the people and you listen to their aspiration and then you provide them the services that they need, then the whole country will move up.
Yes, we are quite happy that you said at least there's something to take you along with you to the other part of the world as example from Nepal. And thanks for your precious time. Thank you for being here at the Jantai studio. Thank you.
Thank you, Arun.
Thank you. This was Renaud Meyer, Country Director of UNDP, talking about current social situation and development situation of Nepal. We'll be talking to other personalities in this program, The View. Keep watching Janata Television. Namaste.